Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Vibrant Life podcast. I'm Sarah Nolan, and I'm an energy management and burnout prevention consultant. And I'm here with Brandon Hofer. And Brandon is from Beaverton, Oregon, and he is a coach launcher who helps experts launch their coaching businesses into the digital world. And he has over 15 years of experience with life coaching, fitness coaching, and business coaching. So he's really able to give his clients a well-rounded level of service and help see the big picture. And what I love about this is that there are so many new coaches who don't necessarily have the experience and this well-roundedness that Brandon has. So he's able to like I said, help with the big picture as people are launching the new phases of their business, because these are experts who are, from what I understand, so Brandon and I are in a mastermind together, and he was sharing in the mastermind about how, this isn't just like new people who decide to be a coach. This is somebody who is an expert in they have decided to go into a new stage of their business and start coaching other people. Am I getting that right, Brandon?
Yeah, you got it. And first of all, let me
Yeah.
just say thanks for the welcome. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
happy to be here. And hello, everyone, if you're a viewer or a listener or whatever. And yeah, you got it spot on. It's those folks who already have an expert level skill set, and you're operating in an offline capacity, right? And
Right.
you want to explore, hey, what is it like to market online? What is it like to engage potential clients online and turn them into clients and raving fans? So yeah, originally it started, I was just helping fitness professionals make the leap and add a second stream of revenue to online coaching. But just then throughout the years and the system we developed, I realized, hey, this actually works for more than just fitness professionals. So we kind of broadened the scope of the type of client that we serve.
Yeah, and Brandon is sharing with us. So we have a series that we're doing for the podcast called The Hero's Journey. And it's all about overcoming. And Brandon's got something really cool he's going to share with us today about overcoming the fears and doubts that come with stepping into something new, doing things differently. And I can just imagine people and I went through this actually myself. I started working offline. I worked in an office, and I did the brick and mortar with my business. And then I got to this point where I was like, this isn't really working for my lifestyle. I want a little bit more time freedom, and I want to be able to scale in a bigger way than what I can do with what I've got here in
Yeah.
this office. And so I can definitely relate to probably what your clients go through as well. And it is the unknown, it's like you have to do things so differently in this online world. And it's been like 3 years and I'm still getting used to it. So.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the hero's journey, because there's like this archetypal hero's path that we follow, and we all want to be, and we all are the hero of our own story, of our own journey. And if you look at every story, whether it's a novel, a movie, or whatever, like all the best ones have some kind of hero's journey that includes the protagonist like taking this massive leap into the unknown.
Yes.
And going on the adventure because of the fact that they took the step into the unknown. If you look at some of the popular myths of our day, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, even if I can quote, like, I'm a dad, I have 2 little girls. So even the story of Moana, if you've seen that Disney movie, that's like, it's the hero's journey of stepping into the unknown. And as a result of that, going on this incredible path. So yeah, when I think about that archetype, that hero's journey, I definitely think about these very nuanced, subtle moments in my own life where I was faced with a very clear decision of like, look, you can go this way or you can go this way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do the one, you're following the conventional path. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But it's the moments where you've got that extra little still small voice inside that's like, no, 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 you got to do the thing that you weren't expecting, that you weren't counting on. It's that little bit of chaos thrown in that you didn't plan for that kind of makes life a little spicier, but it's also like it's nerve wracking and it can induce a lot of fear as you're faced with those kind of choices.
Now, Brandon, when we talked a little bit before this, you had mentioned you've been doing this like seems like your whole life, just doing the unconventional. You talked about a couple of things you did early on before,
Definitely,
starting your career. So can you share with us some of those experiences that you've had and some of the mental and emotional journey that you went through as you were doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can remember from early on. I mean, even in high school, I mean, at the time it felt like a bit, and that's the thing. All these big leaps, they only feel like a big leap to you internally at the time, and then in retrospect, you're like, well, that wasn't such a big deal. But like going to college out of state, at the time it was like, oh my word, this crazy adventure. But I mean, I look back on that now and like, oh no, you went to another state. Like that's not really a big deal. But from my limited perspective at the time, it was a big deal. And then after college, I ended up going to South Africa for about 6 years, serving with a nonprofit organization, volunteering there. And again, that feeling of like coming up at the end of college and like, oh, you're supposed to get a job. You're supposed to like start making a living, supposed to start saving money. And I was kind of like, no, I'm going to go to Africa and work for no money and just volunteer.
And what did you do for what was your volunteer?
So the volunteer organization, it was a performing arts ministry. And so they would travel around to different cities doing these performance arts. And they drew in other volunteers who were doing like a gap year, like between high school and college, usually was the average age, 18, 19 years old. And it was very common I think in Europe, it's very common to take the gap year, either work for a year or do like a year of service before you go on to university. So it was that kind of arrangement. And I went over there. I was a little late to the game, right? This was after college. But I went over there and I was like, I really dig this. It's like, it's a people-based ministry. So we're all about like investing into the people that we meet. And it was all performance arts. So it wasn't your typical like, I'm going to go dig wells and build toilets. We did some of that too on the side, but that wasn't like the main feature. It was really like a people, like a growth based, like kind of like a student arts ministry, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I'm just imagining for you, it's normal, right? Like you said, it's like in the beginning, it's really scary, but then you do it and then it just feels like, oh, I just did this thing, but for me listening, and I'm sure for other people watching and listening, it's like, wow, you right out of college, you traveled, all around the world to this place that you don't know the language. There's a lot of, unknowns with that. And probably a lot of people, maybe family members, were thinking like, what is he crazy? We just went through the whole college thing, spent all that money, and now he's going to go volunteer. All right.
Yeah, sort of the pattern is, and part of how you're making one of these unconventional choices is a huge chunk of your existing inner circle will try to talk you out of it.
Yes.
And it's not because, oh, they're the haters. It's not like that. It's like people who genuinely know you and care about you, they just don't have the understanding of what you're going after. They just think, what are you doing? But they don't realize that internally you were faced with this life-altering decision. And in that moment, kind of sitting with yourself, it was really nerve-wracking and fearful, but I decided to go forward with it, which obviously, whenever you have an existing social circle, like people are going to agree and people are going to disagree. And at some point you got to go, you know what? If I'm going to upset half the people I know anyway, I might as well take the path that is most in tune with my intuition and my gut on this one.
And what, well, okay, keep going. I've got some questions, but I want you to continue sharing how this all unfolded.
Like I came back to the US after about 6 years in South Africa and was again faced with that decision of like, hey, go get a conventional job or do something else, whatever. And I just thought, you know what? I'm a coach at heart. That's really like deep down everything I've done has always been like some form of like coaching or helping people. That's what I love to do deep down.
Mhm.
So I thought, I love being fit and healthy, so I'm going to be a fitness coach. I'm going to help people in that area of their life, just because I feel like that's very often the first step toward a more comprehensive personal or professional transformation, is just like doing something new with your body, because that then of course translates to all kinds of new thoughts and feelings and perspective on life, and like your energy's up and all this kind of stuff. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that. And again, that was a struggle at first, right? It's like you have no clients, you're not even certified. I got to go study that for a little bit here real quick, leverage my life experience, and then just start getting clients. And it wasn't fun at first. But after I got into it a little bit, I realized like, okay, this is great. I really enjoyed doing this. And then eventually I got the option to, hey, go off on my own or stick under the umbrella of like big box corporate gym. And I went off on my own, and that was nerve wracking. And, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around that as well. And it's always like this recurring theme of the journey into the unknown, right? Like you
Mhm.
don't know what's going to happen. That's what makes it a little bit scary, a little bit intimidating. But if you move forward with the confidence that you're going to be doing a thing that resonates with who you are and the type of purpose that you want to live out, you can at least rest in that. And that kind of gives you the energy and the momentum to keep pushing forward for the days when it's not such smooth sailing.
Yeah. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the days that it wasn't so smooth sailing, and like what were the biggest fears and blocks and things like that that came up for you on
Yeah,
this?
I mean, I think for an example for that, a great example would be when I first launched full time into the online coaching space, because
Mhm.
for a while I was kind of doing half and half. I had a
Mhm.
little commission only sales job over here. I was, starting to coach people in the online space, but eventually I got to the point where I was like, okay, I got to go like all in on this one.
Mhm.
And the fear there was more around, oh my word, I've been working for 3 weeks straight now and I haven't made a sale. I don't have any income. Like, what am I doing?
Mhm.
Because like I left this not completely stable, but somewhat stable. I mean, commission only sales is never stable either,
Right.
but I left a pretty good stable-ish gig to just venture out on my own. And then it was on literally, well, it was in October because it was Halloween night. On Halloween, I had 2 sales that closed for the whole
Mm.
month. And I was like, yes, okay, I know I can do this now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
at the time I had a $2,500 program. So I got 5,000 gross revenue in the door. And I thought, okay, it's not going to work if I just do that, but that at least keeps me
Mhm.
afloat to the point where I can now reinvest at least another month into this and like push forward and go gung ho for it.
Yeah, it's so cool when you get those like little wins like that. I mean, for you that was a huge win.
Oh yeah, totally, totally.
And then it kind of gives you some of that hope of like, okay, I see that this will work if I just keep doing some things and keep getting better. Um, and what were you married, or what were your relationships like that back
Yeah,
then?
so I am married. I have 2 little girls. They're 6 and almost 4.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, when I started the business, it was like, hey, I've got a wife and 2 little girls, and in my case, I'm the sole breadwinner. So there was that added pressure. And I
Hmm.
actually just had a conversation with a client about this earlier today. Some people like that pressure, and it kind of
Hmm.
pushes them forward, which is kind of how I am. It's like, all right, now I have to make something happen. I don't have like a backup plan.
Right.
But other people, the personality is more like that pressure is a little bit debilitating.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm definitely not like saying like, hey, throw caution to the wind and just go for it. Like you gotta know, you gotta believe deep down that if I
Hmm.
make this move, then I believe enough in my own capacity to make something happen that it will work. But even with that belief, yeah, it's still like you can still feel the subtle pressure
Yeah.
on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
Absolutely. I'm kind of with you on that. I like to have some of that pressure that boosts me instead of holds me back. And you do have to be careful of, is that really your personality type or not? Um, what would, how did your wife respond to this shift? Like, was
Well,
she totally supportive, or was she like, what the heck are you doing?
she was supportive because up until that point, she had finally gotten used to me making decisions this way.
Okay, yeah. So
And
she
that's,
knew what she was getting into.
yeah. And, one thing that I definitely wanted to highlight here is that principle of living your life by design in terms
Mm-hmm.
of knowing what you will and will not tolerate in your own
Mm-hmm.
life. And so when I say my wife was supportive, I mean that she knew ahead of time that there were certain things in my life that I wasn't willing to tolerate. Not with her in
Mm-hmm.
our relationship, I mean with like my life situation and my
Right,
career.
right.
It's like if I know I'm miserable, I'm unfulfilled, I'm making money but I'm not happy, I don't really like what I'm doing, she
Mm-hmm.
knows that I'm going to make a decision to change that life situation based on the fact that I'm not willing to tolerate this like subtle sense of mediocrity in my
Mm-hmm.
life. So I had already made a lot of these decisions beforehand simply by deciding, hey, this is what I'm not willing to tolerate. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
that was, the conventional path, the life of mediocrity, um, superiors or bosses treating me in a way that was not respectful, like those sorts of things. I just knew ahead of time, I'm not going to tolerate those things in my life when I know that there's a different path that I could follow.
Right.
So she was supportive, which definitely
Mm-hmm.
helps a lot, taking a path
Absolutely.
like that. And then of course, we look back in retrospect and it's like, great, well, it's working now. We're rolling full steam ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So we're good to go.
So, what were some of the tools and mental shifts that you had to make in order to successfully? I can see a lot of people doing something like you did, and then going through those weeks or months without making any money, and it's like, oh my gosh, did I just make the wrong decision?
Yeah.
And this isn't working. I'm not cut out for this. All these things that come up, and then they just bail. Like, what helped you to prevent yourself from bailing and keep going forward?
Yeah. So I would say probably one of the best tools, if not the best tool that I've chosen to leverage is simply asking better questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I was introduced to the metaphor not too long ago, and I thought this really captured it really well, is your brain is like a Google search bar, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you type into that search bar, that's going to determine those top 10 results that you get on the first page.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're asking questions of your life, like, well, how can I find a job to make ends meet? Then guess what? That's what you typed in the search bar, and all the search results you get are going to be answers along the lines of, this is how you can barely scrape by.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're limited to 10 different choices of how to barely scrape by. But if instead you ask a question like, well, how can I make 20 grand a month? Now the results get filtered. Now you don't even get typical jobs or conventional positions on that first search page. Instead, you're going to get like unconventional ways to earn income, which will usually include like starting your own business or partnering with or different ways where you can do that. But now
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find ways to make 20 grand a month instead of barely scraping by. Then you can filter your search further and go, how can I make 20 grand a month and do something that I really love and enjoy doing and serve people in a coaching capacity on the path towards that? Now all your search results are going to be filtered even further. So for me, that tool, that practice of learning how to ask better questions shaped the results that I got, because the answers you get from that search bar determine the choices you make and the path that you take. I had a client not too long ago. He was asking me, well, hey, he was just getting started. And he said, hey, do you think I can hit 10K this month? And I just said, that's the wrong question.
Yeah.
Ask, how am I going to hit 10K this month? Because if you ask, hey, do you think I can make that this month? You're going to get a weird collection of results. But if you just ask, how am I going to do this? Now the search results that you get are
Mm-hmm.
going to be clever and innovative ideas of how you can get there. And then obviously it's your choice if you implement on those different ideas and those possibilities or not. But the point is simply starting with a more strategic question
Mm-hmm.
determines the result that you're going to get. So I started with, how can I earn at least 20,000 a month? How can I do something that I actually genuinely enjoy doing? How can I operate a remote business that's online based so I don't have to deal with driving through traffic anymore?
Mm-hmm.
And how can it be a people-based business where it's service-based rather than product-based? So all those questions together led me to the path I am today. And now I'm like, great, here I am. This is going awesome. But now the questions are like, well, what is the next giant leap for me? How
Mm-hmm.
can I strategically position myself to expand and scale? And some of these other broader questions that I'm actually still asking and thinking through, so that I'll then know what the next like long-term big picture steps are.
Right, right. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing those questions that you've been asking. Um, what kinds of questions what kinds of questions do you feel like have helped your clients? I know you shared a little bit, but I'd like to go a little bit deeper into that. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
can you give a couple more examples of questions that you've asked yourself or with your clients, questions that you've helped them to ask?
Yeah, I'll give you a great one because I'm confident that every human has asked themselves this
Yeah.
question before. And when you take a look at it for what it is, you realize, oh, this doesn't serve me at all. It doesn't help my life situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the question: why isn't this working?
Yeah.
It's like as soon as you face any amount of struggle, or there's an obstacle, or something doesn't go exactly your way, you start to ask, well, why isn't this working? So guess what? Every single answer that you get is a reason why it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to get what you could do to make it better. You're not going to get that search result. You're only going to get, oh, because you didn't do this. Oh, because this isn't working. Oh, because you're not doing this right. Oh, because this is failing. Oh, because you're not cut out for this. Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, it's imposter syndrome. Like, you're going to get all those, and then you dwell on those answers from the
Mm-hmm.
search result. You dwell on those answers, and pretty soon you get inside your own head and you go, you know what? This isn't going to work. I better just like quit and go get a job, or quit and go do something else, or whatever.
Yeah.
So something doesn't work out. Usually our default human response will be, why isn't this working? And you have to train yourself to either ask a different question or ask a follow-up question, which usually will be in the form of, what is one action I can take right now that will send me in the direction I want to go in? And
Mm-hmm.
that's assuming you know the direction you want to go in, right? If you've done the work to answer like, well, how can I build a business that is this based on the criteria you have for yourself? Now you'll ask, well, because I'm not here where I want to be in the moment, what can I do right now that will propel me forward to the goal that I have? That question now gives you 10 search results of
Mm-hmm.
10 different actions you can immediately take. And then you go, great, which action am I going to take right now? Pick one, do it, you move forward. All of a sudden, that why doesn't this work is gone. It's not
Mm-hmm.
even a relevant question to ask anymore. And you basically force yourself out of that self-defeating psychological loop of, oh, it's not working because this, oh, it's not working because that, oh, it's not working for that. So for example, in the world of online coaching, you got to make a sale, right? You got to enroll somebody, and that involves making a sale and money
Right.
changing hands. And people will often ask, coaches will often ask, well, why can't anyone afford my program?
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a step back and look at that objectively, you're like, what an absurd question. Because somewhere in all of the 8 billion humans, like, someone can afford your program. You just have to find them. So
Right.
rather than saying, why can no one afford my program?
I feel like
You
I
would
hear that
rather,
so many times. Such a
yeah,
common
exactly. Well,
question.
guess what search result you're going to get? All the
Yeah.
reasons why no one, no human can afford what you have, which is, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? When you put it in those terms. But you can instead ask, how can I find the people who want and need what I'm offering?
Mm-hmm.
Totally flips it on its head. Now you're not concerned with self. You're not concerned with, why doesn't nobody buy my thing? Now you're focused on service, and you're just asking, I have this really incredible service that I want to bring to the world. How can I find the people who genuinely need it and want it? Now you
Right.
go into search mode, and you're looking for people who you can serve and help. Totally different paradigm than, how can I make one sale and barely scrape by this month?
Right. Amazing. And that's one of those things where I feel like that one little shift changes everything,
Oh, totally.
right? Changes the whole approach to life, changes, your business, parent, like, probably changes the way you interact with your kids, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the question game goes just as powerfully into relationships.
Right, right.
You know, you could, as a parent, you could ask, well, why does my kid keep screwing up? And if you ask that question consistently enough, all you're going to see is why your kid's a screw up.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
they're perfect, but you're missing out on all the cool kick-ass things they can do
Hmm.
because you're just fixated on why they're screwing up.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this journey. And it sounds like you just being a witness to your story and everything that you've been telling us. It sounds like you've taken these risks over and over and over in your life. And they say, repetition is, the mother of all skill. And repeatedly you've taken these risks
Hmm.
and seen what happens, how to work through it, what comes to the other side. And I'm curious, Brandon, how do you feel like this path of taking risks and really staying true to your heart and staying aligned on your path, how have you become a different person because of that? Like, how has that shaped who you are today?
Yeah, good question. So when I look back on like my own journey, I see decisions that pushed me and challenged me to do what I really want to actually do anyway.
Yeah.
And so like I said, for me, a lot of that is, hey, by nature, like I'm a coach, I'm a people builder, like I'm a helper. Like those are just things that are like intrinsic to me.
Hmm.
And so I'm always looking for the opportunities to do that. And when I look back, I realize, oh, if I hadn't taken the risk, I wouldn't have been able to do the thing that I love doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people go sideways. They think that it's like owed to us somehow that we get to do the things that we most love. But if you look at the people who are actively doing the thing that they most love and that they know is the most impactful for the rest of the world and the rest of humanity, somewhere in their life, there was a wacky, unconventional
Mhm.
choice that they had to make that wasn't the thing that everybody thought they should do. And it was the painful choice. It was the kind of wrapped up in fear choice.
Mhm.
It was the leap into the unknown, right? So it's that leap into the unknown that puts you in a position where you truly can do the thing that you love. And in most cases, you can earn a living doing that thing that you love, but the cost is that hesitant, like, oh no, like I'm
Mhm.
jumping into the unknown, like that kind of a choice. But if you can break through that, and it's just that subtle fear on the inside, right? it's
Yeah.
it's like you're hanging out by yourself and you're sort of trapped in your own thoughts. Like that's the thing that we have to break through. It's not like some big external obstacle. It's usually this like internal mental barrier. But
Mhm.
when we break through that, now all of a sudden you can step into what, I mean, some people call it living your purpose, whatever phrase
Yeah.
you want to use it, but it's operating in a way that makes you feel most alive. And ultimately, like that's what we need is more people who are operating in this
Yeah.
spirit of like, I'm fully alive and like jazzed up and energized. Like that's the way to make an impact in the world, to spread, sort of like give everyone else permission to live that way as well.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. You know what comes to mind when you're talking about, the contrast between these two different paths is, you know, I know some people in my life who they took the safe path. They took the conventional, what their parents told them, what society told them, their teachers told them. And they do that living an unfulfilled life, but it's like, hey, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm being a good girl, or I'm being a good boy.
Yeah, yeah.
And they do the thing and they're unfulfilled, but they have the story of like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what people do. And that's how they justify it. But then they get to the end where they retire and they had to wait like 30, 40, 50 years. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, who am I? They go through this like quarter or whatever life crisis, and who am I? What am I supposed to be doing now? When, like, what if people could bypass all of that minutia, all of that, just like grinding the wheels, and just do what they like, be themselves and do what they want to do now.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm glad you used that phrase and that specific question. What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
And if you think about that back to the framework that we were talking about before, like, that's a terrible question.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just start with the premise that there is no supposed to,
Right.
then you
Yeah.
can ask any question you want. So it's not, what am I supposed to do here? As if there's
Mm-hmm.
some like external supposed to that's telling you this is what you should do. You can rather say, hey, given my circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
what seems like the best choice here, or what seems like the most exciting choice, or
Mm-hmm.
what's the choice that puts me most in tune with who I really am? What's the choice that'll serve the most people? Like, you can ask whatever question you want as soon as you delete the question, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Because
Right.
supposed to do, you're not even going to get good search results. You're just going to get like random stuff, basically, because
Right.
there is no supposed to. The
Supposed to
supposed
according to
to's,
who?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the supposed to's are just like tacit knowledge that's been handed down generation after generation. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, nobody really knows a supposed to. We just
Right.
pretend like we do.
Right, right. So, Brandon, what kinds of rewards have you been reaping because of this lifestyle of taking risks and honing in on, who you are, honing your life on who you are and what's most aligned with, who you are and what you love?
Yeah. So for me, the number one reward is I get to run my own business.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always wanted to do, and I've done in various capacities. Uh, but I love that. I love that freedom and independence, and I love calling the shots. It doesn't mean I don't
Mm-hmm.
listen to counsel and wisdom and advice. It just means I don't have to listen to someone else who is only there to instruct me for their benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a very different dynamic. And then ultimately it's the lifestyle, right? Because you can say like, oh, I'm making a good income, like that's nice, and it is nice, but I didn't get into this to like become fabulously wealthy. I got into
Mm-hmm.
this to make a really great income, to afford all the things that I want and need, have plenty left over to give generously when and where I want to,
Mm-hmm.
and to have my lifestyle. So like if I want to, take the family on a vacation, we can plan that. I can create my own schedule, and ultimately I'm not bound by a single physical location, which for me was a top priority. It was, I don't want to feel like I'm stuck ever.
Yeah.
If that's
Yeah.
stuck in a physical location, if that's stuck in an emotional state, if that's stuck in a certain job or career or business, I just never want to feel like I'm forced into a decision. I want the freedom to choose and determine my life situation. So for me, that's the ultimate outcome to all of this.
Freedom.
Yeah, the freedom
Yeah.
to know that I can choose my life situation at any given time.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
your journey, sharing all the wisdom that you have extracted from that journey. I got so much out of this. I'd say one of my biggest takeaways from hearing your story is the questions for sure, and the repetition of it, and how it's like a lifestyle of taking these risks. And I can just relate to that so much with myself of, I grew up in a conventional, you do the conventional thing. And at some point I had to make that shift. And the more that I take risks, the easier it is. Like, I remember the first time I invested in myself, it was like $1,000. And I was like shaking and like sweating and my mouth was dry and I thought I was going to cry. But it's like, most people don't invest in themselves. Like, most people don't ever do that. So just anyway,
Well,
but it's,
that's significant because
yeah.
if you're not investing in yourself, you're not asking the right question, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
not asking, how can I become more? How can I
Mm-hmm.
grow? How can I evolve? How can I develop? How can I take charge and make my life situation better? Instead, you're probably asking things like, how can I save an extra $50 this month?
Right.
Or, how can I scrape by? Or where can we cut corner? Like, those questions don't necessarily serve you. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
you're in the context of a budgeting conversation, maybe they have their place. But the bigger question is, how can I invest? I mean, it could be time or money or
Mm-hmm.
any of those resources, but how can I invest to make my life better? And yeah, it might feel like a small step backwards in terms of like that $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever the price tag is,
Mm-hmm.
but big picture, it's going to launch you into all kinds of new
Oh
opportunities.
yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Well, once you start investing in yourself, especially as you increase your investment level, whether it's time or money or both, everything from what I've seen expands. It's like you expand according to the level of investment, with stepping out of your comfort zone for your own benefit.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, if people want to reach out to you, find more about you, find more about what you do, where's the best place to send them?
Yeah. So probably the best place is going to be to connect with me on Facebook.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can search for me, Brandon Hofer, Hofer, that's one F.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you just go to facebook.com/BE Hofer, B is in Brandon, E is in Earl, that's my middle name,
Mm-hmm.
Hofer, Hofer. You can find me there. I mean, at this stage, for me, it's all about connecting with people like
Yeah.
on an actual real level, like especially in the internet world, right? Like we see profiles and it's like, is this a real person? But then we
Uh-huh.
realize, oh yeah, for the most part, there's a real actual person behind all of those digital profiles. And for me, that's a huge part of this process, is connecting with the person who's behind the profile. So yeah, you can find me there. Again, facebook.com/BE Hofer, Hofer, one F. And yeah, send me a friend request, shoot me a message. I'm happy to connect. And specifically, if you are looking at, hey, what does it take to become an online coach? If I have this expertise and I want to monetize that, I want to create a business in the online space and operate that remotely, we can just talk about it. We can message back and forth. We can jam on a Zoom call, whatever. I'll kind of give you the lay of the land, so to speak, and
Mm-hmm.
give you like, hey, well, these are the steps that you'd have to take to make that happen.
Yeah, that sounds great. And do you have a program, obviously. Um, is that, can you share just a brief description of that?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. The main program I run is a 6-month online
okay.
business launching process. 6 months because there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet that's like 8 weeks and 10
Yeah.
weeks and all this kind of like, to me, that's just high pressure, right? It's like you have
Mm-hmm.
to build your entire business in 8 weeks. Then at the end of the 8 weeks, like, oops, give us another $12,000 and we'll keep coaching you. So I said, I want to create a program that actually walks people through the process. And that takes at least 6 months, because this is not just throw a what's it online and everyone's going to watch your webinar and then start enrolling with you. Like we're a principle based program. So we
Mm-hmm.
don't teach, this is how to build one tactic. This is how to build one marketing thingy and you're good to go. We teach, here are all the sequential principles and processes involved in
Mm-hmm.
taking your expertise, monetizing it, creating a program, launching it online, prospecting, yes, building your digital presence, adding automations, and then expanding from there. Like that's a big process
Yeah.
and it takes longer than 8 weeks. So
Oh yeah.
you're going to work with me for a minimum of 6 months, and whatever it takes, we're going to help you monetize and start enrolling new clients online.
Geez, Brandon, where were you when I was doing this? This sounds so helpful.
I know. And well, that's how I designed my program, is like, what are all the things that I actually needed when I
Right.
launched online?
Mm-hmm.
Because I got taken quite a few times with terrible programs,
Oh, there's so
or
much
just
garbage out there.
mediocre programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of mediocre ones where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily a scam, but it's probably overpriced for what I got.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm breaking that paradigm.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for whoever signs up, with Brandon through this podcast, then I also have a gift for you that's going to help to support you on your journey with Brandon. So just let Brandon know that you heard the podcast and that's where you heard about him, and then we'll connect together and I can give you that gift as well.
Awesome.
So definitely take him up on that. If you're an expert and you're ready to just get into the online world and get more freedom and time yourself, then take Brandon up on that. And you will be so happy. You're going to look back 6 months from now and be like, you know, a totally different person. So
yeah, right on.
Thank you so much, Brandon. So good to have you on today.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast. I love it. I love talking about all these things that I mean, it gets me motivated and inspired all over again, just talking about it. So
yeah, me too. All right. Talk to you guys later.
All right.